Ladies and gentlemen, we are on a persistent schedule today. We have decided that we will do this accordingly. According to the city. You can't hear me. Is anybody out there that can't hear me? Should I turn it up?
A little bit.
The lady back there that pointed that she's standing up, she's saying she can't hear me. Happened to be my assistant. She never hears me. Now when I talk to her, she always ignores me. But ladies and gentlemen, first of all, let's put our hands together for this wonderful day and what we're getting ready to do here. And at this point, I'm going to turn it over to our MC. Nicolas, that's you, right? Let's go. Get over here, man. Let's go to work.
I'd like to welcome all of you to the 25th anniversary Silver Jubilee of the MLK celebration of Paradise Valley. This is an auspicious occasion, and we have a unique program this year. This is sure to be exhilarating, enriching, and thought-provoking. Dr. Martin Luther King was the chief spokesman for the nonviolent activism in the civil rights movement, which successfully protested racial discrimination, both in federal and in state law. If you turn your program over, you'll see on the back side of the program is a quote from Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. In a real sense, all life is interrelated. All men are caught in an inescapable network of mutuality, tied in a single garment of destiny. Whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly. This quote, in many ways, describes both the universal and organic nature of his message, as well as the key principle of the oneness of humanity, which we promote here in this program year after year. To honor Dr. King is to remind us of this precious heritage, the heritage that we share together as stewards and trustees. Now, stewards and trustees of what, you may ask? Stewards and trustees of both civil rights, diversity, equity, and race amity. The campaign for a federal holiday in the King's honor began soon after his assassination in 1968. President Ronald Reagan signed into law this holiday in 1983, and it was first observed 3 years later. At first, some states resisted observing the holiday as such, giving it a final observance in all 50 states for the first time in the year 2000. Now, Arizona, you might have heard, was one of the last states, making this program just that much more precious. Now, before we get into the jazz tribute, which wonderful William Doc Jones and his group has prepared for us, there's a couple of key logistical things. First, if you're on the Wi-Fi or network, please disconnect, because we are doing live streaming, so we really appreciate that. Second, no flash photography. No, I'm kidding. You're welcome to take photographs or video, but please try not to stream because of what we're trying to do with the streaming system. And then finally, please put your phones on silent or vibrate as to not disrupt the program. Thank you, we appreciate that very much. I'd like to make a few remarks about the land that we're on. It is my wish to acknowledge the native nations which have inhabited Arizona lands for centuries. Please join me as participants today in accepting this collective ancestral land acknowledgement, that we recognize and respect the indigenous peoples as traditional stewards of this land and the enduring relationship that exists between indigenous peoples and this land. The land on which we gather is the traditional territory of the O'odham, Jewett, Hohokam, Akimel O'odham, Upper Pima, Pipash, and Maricopa peoples. We honor the people of these nations on whose ancestral homelands and resources our homes and buildings were built. We thank them for their strength and resilience in protecting this land, and humbly aspire to uphold our responsibilities according to their example. By offering this acknowledgement, we also affirm indigenous sovereignty and our common solidarity with American Indian and indigenous peoples. Thank you. Today, being the 25th anniversary, we have set up a special program for you, which actually runs longer than most years. And it includes a wonderful jazz festival and jazz tribute to Dr. King. I'd like to thank William Doc Jones and this wonderful group that you've assembled. Doc Jones is a professional musician, educator, and recording artist for more than 40 years. Doc Jones has toured with Otis of the Temptations and played with Aretha Franklin. Pop Staple and the Staple Singers opened for Chris Badi, the Whispers, just to name a few. Most recently, he has been the producer and founder of the International Jazz Day Foundation. The foundation is celebrating its 10th annual Jazz Festival. The International Jazz Day is an event celebrated in more than 196 countries worldwide. Doc Jones has been an educator for 30 years, both in Chicago, Arizona, California, Los Alamos, Mexico, a lover of not only jazz and Motown music, but of the universal language and arts. Doc Jones endeavors to garner support for affordable housing for musicians and other members of the arts community in Arizona. Please give it up for Doc Jones.
What a great introduction. I'm going to take you with me everywhere that I go with introduction. And just for the record, I'm born and raised in Chicago. I have 5 children. And, okay, somebody back there clapping. I would like to say, again, give tribute to my backbone, which is my wife, is not here. Over 55 years we've been together. And when she hears things like that, she will say, so what? So I'm going to start my conversation off with you, my musical contribution to, my jazz contribution to Martin Luther King, with a composition by Miles Davis called, So What? stand together for my man Dan. Thank you. As Martin Luther King had a dream, my friend and also composer Pharaoh Saunders had a wonderful composition called "The Creator Has a Master Plan," and he knew that Martin Luther King had one. So we want to play one of Pharaoh's songs called "The Creator Has a Master Plan." Through all the land, the Creator has a through all the land. There was a time when peace was on the earth, and joy and happiness, and each man knew his worth. And my heart, how I yearn for this feeling to return, and I cry as time flies, come with me. The Creator has a master plan, peace and happiness through all the land. The Creator has a master plan, peace and happiness through all the land. The Creator has just one human happiness through all the land. Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together for Don. As you know, most music is in 5/4. I mean 4/4. You know, everything's 1, 2, 3, 4. With another great musician, Chick Corea. He said, "I'm going to try something on a different meter." He said, "It would never work." What do you mean, a different meter? I said, "Well, we're going to try it and see what happens. See, tell me if you like this." 4, 5, 1, 2, 4, 5, 1. Anybody remember that song? One of the biggest songs ever. Big time. Well, we gonna keep this moving, because they told me, Doctor, you only got 20 minutes. Do not, we're gonna turn the sound off and you continue. So I said, right there. I'm never on time, so if I run over time, I'm sorry. This next song we're gonna do.
It's not that sorry.
Well, I guess since we played something in 5/4, we might as well go to 6/4, just to show you what the different meters sound like. This one, I'm sure Dr. King loved it, because it's a rhythm from back at home, back in Africa. Well, for those who don't know, back in 1964, Dr. King actually, I think this is my wife calling. I don't answer the phone at 11 o'clock. Dr. King wrote a wonderful speech to open up the 1964 Jazz Festival in Montreal. And I would like you to kind of hear what he wrote. Ladies and gentlemen, without any further ado, put your hands together for Wayne Gaskins. Mary gonna join me on stage with his guitar. We were going in the back. He said, not today, Doc.
Good morning to all of you.
Good morning.
Before I begin, the first music you heard this morning when you woke up, when you went outside, were birds singing. Am I right? If you couldn't sleep the other night and you heard the thunder, you were listening to the bass, even as you heard the rain come down that would allow you to be harmonized into a very sweet lullaby and go into sleep. We've always known that music creates a certain type of unity among people around the world, no matter what their persuasion may be, whether it's in terms of race, ethnicity, culture, language. All of those things are just a part of who we are as a people. But we see what music has done for us to unify and harmonize our lives together. Music has always told a story, and some people have injected that story so that we may appreciate more fully what music does for all of us. 50 years ago, there was one album that was called Deliver the Word. It was there for a reason. A band that most people know by the name of Earth, Wind & Fire created an album called Last Days and Time. And they had a message in that as well. Kool and the Gang started out as a jazz organization, and they created an album that was called Light of the World. And yet many people may not have known that they were jazz musicians first and foremost. And as anyone who is from Detroit or Chicago knows, if you like Motown music, then you also know that the Funk Brothers, the musicians behind Motown, were all jazz musicians. So jazz has a unique place in American history, and as we recognize that, we will now listen to the words of Martin Luther King as he wrote about something that really would impact us all today as a unifier. Jazz has wrought many things out of oppression. God has wrought many things out of that oppression. He has endowed his creations and his creatures with the capacity to create. And from this capacity has flowed the sweet songs of sorrow and joy that have allowed man to cope with his environment and many different situations. Jazz speaks for life. The blues tell the story of life's difficulties, and if you think for a moment, you will realize that they take the hardest realities of life and put them into music, only to come out with some new hope or a sense of triumph. This is triumphant music. Modern jazz has continued in this tradition, singing the songs of a more complicated urban existence. When life itself offers no order and meaning, the musician creates an order and meaning from the sounds of the earth which flow through his instrument. It is no wonder that so much of the search for identity among American Negroes was championed by jazz musicians long before the modern essayists and scholars wrote of racial identity as a problem for a multiracial world. Musicians were returning to their roots to affirm that which was stirring in their souls. Much of the power of our freedom movement in the United States has come from this music. It has strengthened us with its sweet rhythms when courage began to fail. It has calmed us with its rich harmonies when spirits are down. And now, Jazz is exported to the world. For the particular struggle of the Negro in America, there is something akin to the universal struggle of modern man. Everybody has the blues. Everybody longs for a meaning. Everybody needs to love and be loved. Everybody needs to clap hands and be happy. And everybody longs for faith. In music, especially this broad category, what we call the original American classical music that many people now call jazz, there is a stepping stone towards all of these. Thank you.
That's the very reason my poetry board is coming back over to Nicolas. Give him a round of applause.
Wow. Let's give them a measure of our appreciation. I didn't hear you louder. Thank you, Doc. A few introductions are in order. First, my name is Nicolas Mentha, or Nicolas Mentha in French. My family is multi-ethnic, multi-racial. I am part Persian and part Swiss-French, so I understand different cultures and different backgrounds coming together. I have served in the area of diversity and inclusion, anti-racism, and putting an end to anti-blackness since my pre-teens. And so I have assisted numerous human relations commissions through trainings and seminars, and also workshops, and have also served on the MLK committee for Paradise Valley for the past 10 years. I feel truly honored to be your MC today, and I would like to pull one out of the hat here. It's not part of the program. I would like to invite our police department to come to the front, please. Police chief and former police chief, do you all please come to the front? Police Chief Freeman Conley and former Police Chief John Winterstein. Police Admin Kevin Albert. Police Volunteer Dan Crowley. Police Volunteer Chrissy Cower. And Police Volunteer Rich Lyons. One fact that you may not know is that the police department was the early sponsors with the Baha'i community in starting this program, and it's one of the few places in the country where the police department was involved from the very beginning. And this is an enduring and lasting contribution, and what an example of an amazing police department. We'd like to ask you all to stay afterwards, after the program, to take pictures with the committee. Thank you. Actually, when I spoke to Fred Gray, who was the attorney of Dr. King, he was surprised that it was the police department that was involved. So, this is a special program. In 1997, the Baha'is of Paradise Valley proposed to commemorate this national holiday in conjunction with the town of Paradise Valley. Starting in the year 2000, an award was established to honor those working for harmony, justice, unity, and diversity in society. In conjunction with local schools, an essay contest was conceived to engage students, our future leaders, in dialogue about the vision of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. The promotion of unity is another concept in these essays, and also the tackling of racism as the most vital and challenging issue facing us in the United States. Also in 2013, an annual community service project was initiated to promote action among youth. Every year, donation bins for non-perishable food items are placed at Town Hall and at the police department. Please get extra supplies and donate it to these bins. Since 2017, we have added an online gallery to view images of the luncheon in Town Hall, and in 2021, we broadcast our first live stream of the MLK festivities. This year, 2023, marks the 25th anniversary. The local spiritual assembly of the Baha'is of Paradise Valley and the Baha'i community, the founding and key sponsor of this event, would like to thank the town of Paradise Valley, mayor and town council, the town manager, the police department, public works, and all the volunteers, speakers, musicians, and committee members who have worked tirelessly for over 2 decades to make this incredible activity possible. At this time, I would like to invite our mayor, Mayor Jerry Bien-Willner, to say a few words to our celebration.
Well, thank you very much. Can everyone hear me? Yes. Great. Well, those are tough acts to follow. Nicholas, thank you so much. Doc, I'm glad there was a buffer in between me. Nicholas, you did have the hardest job of going up after Doc and his talented team, and you can see why I'm proud with a lot of other mayors to help promote his International Jazz Day coming up in April. So you'll see me and others promoting that, and you get a sense for what that's all about, the power and the teaching. I learned a little bit today about music too, so it's very cool. So I want to say to everyone here, welcome. And I don't mean hello, I mean welcome. And I mean welcome like you're sitting in your family room, welcome. Because I want everyone to take a second and sink into your chair if you're sitting, or if you're standing, relax a little bit, and take a look around the room at all your brothers and sisters that are here in this amazing, amazing community and this amazing event. 25 years of celebrating and renewing the legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. So thank you. And so this event isn't possible, and I think this is the best turnout for the event on the 25th year, and it's just an incredible thing for our community. It's not possible, first of all, without the volunteer committee that's put this together. If you're a current or former committee member, please raise your hand so you can be recognized. Thank you all so much. And as was mentioned by Nicholas, our town staff and town volunteers come in on what would normally be a day off to help put this together. Please raise your hand if you're a town staff member, town volunteer. And of course, I speak here on behalf of our town council. Would our town council members in attendance please raise your hands or stand so you can be recognized? Council member Mark Stickman, council member Congressman Mike Scott. Thank you for joining us. So we're all here together. We're here to learn. We're here to honor. We're here to respect. And most of all, what I truly love about this special day in the town of Paradise Valley is it helps me to center myself. It's in January, beginning of the year. You know, look, it's the kind of day people could easily sit on the couch in the living room or family room of their home and listen to some music or have a cup of coffee. But you all came here today. And so my hope is that everybody feels as energized, as uplifted, as centered as I am. And towards that point, I did forget not forget, because I just caught myself, a group of people, very important people who are here. If you're a current or former honoree, including student essay winners, please raise your hand so we can recognize you. So this is our amazing community. This is your family room. This is your family for the rest of the morning and beyond. And it's our great hope that everybody has an amazing time feeling uplifted, energized, recharged to do the work we need to do as a community to lift ourselves up together, to heal and to prosper in spirit. And that's my wish for today. So thank you. It's a pleasure to have you all here.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We're going to start the program with a prayer. And so before we do that, if there's anyone that needs to go into the back room here, we have an overflow room. And we have an overflow voice. Testing? Okay. Very good. So I'd like to invite up here Mr. Badi-Nur Amini to share a prayer for America from the Baha'i writings.
Hello everyone, and allow to my Baha'i friends and family. My name is Badi-Nur Amini. I'm 14 years old and I'm from China. I wanted to thank the committee for inviting me again for I think the third time. I was invited here at the age of 6 and 11 by Don Streets, and he's very missed today. I also wanted to thank my parents and my siblings for all the support. O thou kind Lord, this gathering is turning to thee. These hearts are radiant with thy love. These minds and spirits are exhilarated by the message of thy glad tidings. O God, let this American democracy become glorious in spiritual degrees, even as it has aspired to material degrees, and render this just government victorious. Confirm this revered nation to praise the standard of the oneness of humanity, to promulgate the most great peace, to become thereby most glorious and praiseworthy among all the nations of the world. O God, this American nation is worthy of thy favors and is deserving of thy mercy. Make it precious and near to thee, through thy bounty and bestow.
Thank you, Badi-Nur. Now the part that we've been waiting for, our Diversity Champion awardee, Marvin Perry. Inspired by Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s dream to redress violations of constitutional rights and an expansive federal works program for fair and upward mobility of African Americans to leadership role, Perry's personal passion to promote minority executive leadership in corporate, nonprofit, and policy-making institutions at the state and national level has been inspiring. Perry founded the Black Board of Directors Project in 1984. Through this organization, Perry hopes to empower members of Arizona's Black community to encourage them to seek board membership on corporate level. In the organization's history, which spans nearly 3 decades, the project has placed more than 2,000 Blacks and other minorities on various boards and commissions. He is a relentless and tireless champion for promoting minorities and has done so with wholehearted wisdom and enthusiasm. Perry was born in 1944 in Elmore City, Oklahoma. Both of his paternal grandfathers, Joe Perry and William Douglas, were born into slavery in Texas, as was Perry's grandfather, Tim Perry. Perry earned a bachelor's and master's degree in economics from the University of Central Oklahoma and Oklahoma State University, respectively. And Perry graduated from the American Bankers Association Commercial Lending School. In 2002, he was given the Distinguished Service Award from Arizona State University, and again in 2007, received an honorary doctorate degree of the University of Advancing Technology. He has served on the various boards with the Arizona State Bar, Hispanic Leadership Institute, Arizona Civil Rights Advisory Board, the Valley of the Sun United Way, the Scottsdale Cultural Center, and others. We congratulate Marvin Earl Perry for receiving the 2023 Paradise Valley Diversity Champion Award. I'd like to invite Dr. Kamran Rington to join us on the stage. Dr. Kamran Rington is the chairperson of the local spiritual assembly of the Baha'is of the town of Paradise Valley, and he will present the award to Mr. Perry. And we're going to take a picture over here to the side. Thank you, Mr. Perry. Please come and say a few words.
Indeed, thank you very much. I am definitely honored to receive this award and humbled by the great words that have been said here about me, and I am looking forward to going ahead and doing even more in society. I was told the other day that I needed to say a few words about myself. Well, I'm reminded of the old song that all you are here too young have heard of. But there was a singer once named Sam Cooke. Maybe one or two people maybe. But anyway, he had a song, I was born by a river, been running ever since. And that was kind of like myself. I was born pretty close to a river there in Oklahoma, and where I grew up. And I went to, first 7 years, I went to a segregated school and had a wonderful teacher. And she would always say, one of these days, you're going to be sitting beside a young white person in school. And I came home and mentioned that, and one of my sisters said, older than I, and she said, oh no, that will not happen, because they're so much smarter than we are. Which was really interesting. And I guess it was not hard for me to believe that because I certainly had more money. And but those were the kids that I played with much when I was coming up, pre-teens and like that. And it was interestingly an experience I remember when the 1954 civil rights, the Supreme Court ruling, separate for the equal had to go. This was an amazing time to hear that. It was right after that we went to a school that previously was all white. And I always learned something from that experience. The guy who was principal of that little school in that town, he was 100% behind the idea of integration. There was not ever a hostile word or epithet said in that school. We participated in everything, whether it's from something called those days, 4-H Club, or in sports, or whatever. It was truly a wonderful experience there. And of course, it hurt that most of the people in that town had grown up knowing my father and mother too, and their parents. But even with that aside, it was the act of this guy who really believed in something and made it very smooth. My high school years was 180 degrees different. This was, I know you folks too are young to remember this, but there used to be something people call a sundown town. And that meant that, if you were black, it'd be a good idea not to hang around till sundown. You got a pass or something. And there the experience was right opposite. It was terrific. Every black student who attended that school over a 12-year period dropped out except for 2 people. One was a brother of mine and myself. It was particularly difficult for me because I was at the age of 15, I think I weighed like 83 pounds. So I was quite an easy target. But nonetheless, I went ahead and completed high school, which was one of the great achievements of the back. And I was told I should go to college, but I could not see that at the time. I said, hey, I didn't want to be a teacher anyway, other jobs were appearing, and I would love to be a lawyer, but my father had told me that the shortest cut to starvation for a black man is to be an attorney. Well, today, I see all these millionaire black attorneys around here in Phoenix and stuff, maybe a couple of billionaires. Maybe he was wrong on that. But nonetheless, where I was looking at entrepreneurship, which I had an uncle who had been a very successful entrepreneur. Well, also at that time, in my teens, I was a single man, and I started noticing that a lot of the young ladies I was interested in were going to college. So I said, well, I'll go to college for 1 semester, and that'd be good enough for me to say I went to college. Well, I got hooked on it. And I happened to take a class at a university called Oklahoma City University, which is a private university, very good school. And I was amazed. The only course I could take was a night course, and it was the history of the United States in 1865. This was a tremendous discussion there, and the professor was really great. So I said, well, I got to come back for more. I went ahead and got a bachelor's degree in economics, and then a master's degree in economics from Oklahoma State University, an ag school. And from there, I took a position with the Federal Reserve Bank of Boston. And among all of the opportunities I had, that one happened to pay the least. But I wanted that experience. I said, this would be really different, living in Boston, which has its interesting characteristic there in terms of socially and also in terms of what society you belong to. I mean, not just race, but I'm talking about your class there. I went there and worked for the Federal Reserve Bank of Boston, which was a great experience, and then decided to go into commercial banking. And I always had an interest in doing some things that would help society. So when I moved to a city called Omaha, Nebraska, immediately I was asked to get involved on a number of activities. including served on boards of directors. And one of the organizations I was recruited from was called Mid-City Business and Professional Association. That organization was part of a organization that was started by Booker T. Washington back many years ago. Booker T. Washington was very much into the capitalistic system and like that, and had access to many of the presidents of the United States. So I decided to go ahead and get involved in that organization, become a member, and to come into a first meeting, I got a call and they said, how about serving on the board of this organization? Okay, I'll do that. Well, about 6 months later, I get another call saying, how about becoming the chair? I said, well, I haven't been that long. They said, oh, we want you. So I became the chair of the board of that organization, which was a wonderful experience. I was in my 20s at the time. And one of the things I started talking with the mainly business people about what they would need to advance their business. And I told them, I said, well, one of the things is that you have having a lot of trouble to get loans from banks and like that. And so one of the things that people are going to judge you by is what they know about you, your character. And so one of the ways you can overcome that is by getting involved in the community and expressing yourself and adding back to society, and they will see the great talents that you have. And I did that, and they did that, and they were able to get access, to loans and to contracts and whatever. Well, after my first year was up on the board, I was tapped on the shoulder and said, would you like to become chairman of the board? I said, wait a minute, I'm new in town, so they twisted my arm so hard I could not say no to it. That was a wonderful experience there. I ended up making sure that the people who were in the corporate world also had a chance to see the entrepreneurs. Because one day I know many people, once they've been in the corporate world, they get a taste and they want to go out and do something on their own. But it's two different skill sets to be successful as an entrepreneur versus working for a bank where you get a paycheck every 2 weeks. After that, we put on a number of conferences and worked very closely with the leaders in the community, including a person named that you all know here, if I mention it. But he was a very powerful force in the state of Nebraska and for the country overall. From that, I finally recruited by a person to come to Phoenix to visit. And I said, well, okay, what do they have out there in Phoenix? They have some rattlesnakes, don't they? And they have some cacti, I believe, in the desert, but they haven't been there, so I'll come. And the worst thing was, too, it was in the summer. And after coming here, I said, well, the heat is hot, but it's not really that bad. So I was given an offer, and I rejected it. And they came back with another offer, and I said, well, let me talk to my boss and some others about it. And they said, well, this is a great offer. And, if it doesn't work, we'll always have a position back here with you. So I came here, and I found out I didn't have to shovel in the snow, and I've been here ever since. And you can't get rid of it. Okay, well, one of the things, and that is somebody know me about the Black Border Records Project, and the whole idea behind that is getting people who normally you would not see serving on different boards involved, and we tell them this is doing good for society, but also it is great for you because to build your career expertise at a young age in your life, and one of the days you might go out and do something else. Again, many thanks so much, and it's great to see some beautiful, proud people here today.
Thank you, Marvin. So for Marvin and Kamran and the mayor, please remember to stay after for photographs. So now we're going to have the essay contest winners. Now the theme of the essay contest is the urgency of now, which is also the theme of today's event. And the essays provided this opportunity for kids to have discussions and conversations inside the household. Multi-generational conversations with their parents about these topics, that these are meaningful conversations happening at home. And so that's one of the ways that we get our concepts that we discuss here to go out of here and impact families and community year-round. And so the essay contest is a very key feature of today's ceremony. I'd like to invite Mayor Jerry Bien-Willner to come and to present remarks on each of the essays.
Thank you so much, Nicholas. Well, I had the privilege of reading each of the essays, and they were incredible, and I'm sure there were a lot of other incredible essays submitted as well. Again, the theme was the urgency of now. And so at this time, I'd like to, if it's okay, with the winners, I'll call you up, and you can join me. Hopefully not get too embarrassed as I share with the crowd some of what you've done here. So the 5th grade award winner is Victor. Who's yours? You can stand next to me. I'm going to tell everybody about, and your last name is Waters-Yánez, correct? Okay. Well, welcome and congratulations. The title of your essay, which I read and is excellent, is The Urgency of Now School Gun Violence. And when turning in the essay, Victor wrote in the email that he was submitting an essay on a topic that is urgent and impacts every child in this country and even the world. In addition, he wrote, quote, "I don't want my kids to grow up with the same gun violence threats I have to face." Wow. In his essay, he wrote, quote, "Martin Luther King taught peace and kindness in one of his famous speeches. He urged us not to wait to fix the things that are wrong with the world." Finally, he mentioned, quote, "I'm writing this essay so that there can be change for the better." What powerful statements. Thank you and congratulations. Next up, I'd like to, and Victor's a student at Phoenix Country Day School. We have another Phoenix Country Day School. The 6th grade winner is 12-year-old Alex Ekpo. Alex? So, Alex's essay was called "Not by the Color of Their Skin, but by the Content of Their Character." And I really loved reading your essay, and I actually picked out something myself. I was privileged to have some help to get quotes from the essays, and there was one I thought was instructional, and I kind of do well with instructions, so I picked some of your instructions, if that's okay.
Yeah.
So he said, I really want to put it out there. This is a quote. "I really want to put it out there not to discriminate against each other. And here are 3 lessons that I learned from Alex." He said, number 1, watch your choice of words. They can either heal like a bandage or cut as deep as a sword. Number 2, learn to judge people by what they say and do, not by their skin color. Number 3, support social justice causes when you can. Well, those are great lessons for all of us, so congratulations. We have the 7th grade winner, also 12 years old, from the Montessori Academy, Clarke. And Jesse's essay was called The Climate Crisis. I also learned a lot from your essay, which had sources in it too. It was pretty incredible. And in the essay, Jesse mentioned the quote, global warming will continue to greatly devastate food and water sources, ocean ecosystems, and the Arctic and now Antarctic. If we want to save our Earth, we need to act now. So another powerful call to action and care for the whole planet. So congratulations to you on a great essay. Last but not least, 8th grade. It makes it a little unfair that the 8th graders get to go last because they have the most privileges to begin with. But our 8th grade winner is also from Phoenix Country Day School, 13-year-old Lili. And can you help me with the pronunciation of the last name?
Chaidez.
Chaidez. The title of Lili's essay is Finding Life's Balance. That's a hard thing for all of us to do. In her essay, Lili talks about how, quote, it is important to live in the moment and balance out needs and wants. Now is the best time to get things done, whether it means completing your work on time or crossing things off a bucket list. When talking about obstacles she faces in school and life, and the added stress, Lili states, quote, these obstacles have helped me realize what I can do to improve my work ethic, better development of my work schedule, and help me discover a sense of urgency now. So thank you for those inspiring words and congratulations.
Thank you. Your essays will reverberate through history. At this time, I'd like to ask Doc Jones and everybody else to delight us with a very short encore.
I'll do anything short. I'll try. Thank you. Put your hands together again for the band.
the town council meetings?
For sure.
All right, I'd like to introduce the panel. We're going to have a conversation. It's not a traditional panel. It's a conversation sponsored by ASU Project Humanities and Neal Lester. Neal Lester is the moderator today, and Neal has a PhD and is a founding professor of English and director of Project Humanities. Are you going to introduce the panelists, or should I? Okay, I'll do that while you're setting up. So Neal, since 1997, he's been a professor of English at Arizona State University, having taught previously at the University of Alabama and the University of Montevideo. His areas of specialization are African American literature and cultural studies. Neal earned his BA in English and was valedictorian at the State University of West Georgia. He's the first African American to receive the doctoral degree in English at Vanderbilt. He's the author and co-author and editor of 7 books. He's published, lectured, and taught extensively in the area of African American studies. He's published on African American biography and autobiographies, Black masculinity, neo-slave narratives, and much more. Please welcome Neal. And also, our next panelist is Paul Harasha. He's our Baha'i speaker. Paul Harasha has been professor of sociology at Mesa Community College since 2001. Paul's academic areas of interest include cultural diversity, race relations, gender issues, religious pluralism, social implications of technology, and global leadership. Paul's main goal is to use the sociological perspective to develop and enhance his students' critical thinking skills about the society around him. Paul was named as Professor of the Year by Mesa Chamber of Commerce in 2017, and Paul is a member of the Baha'i Faith. And our final panelist is Ada Martin. Ada is a wife, mother, and educator, activist, and writer. She has spent more than 2 decades in higher education, working in administrative, managerial, instructional, and other design capacities. Before leaving to pursue other professional interests, she served as the senior instructional designer at Arizona State University's W.P. Carey School of Business. She was the first Afro-Latina to serve as ASU's Chicano Latino Faculty and Staff Association President. She's been advising companies on ways to address their diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I would like to also mention that through scholarship, she aims to disrupt the inherent white supremacy in higher education spaces and to center the experiences and voices of Black and Latino educators. Please welcome Ada.
Well, good afternoon/morning. We had a wonderful conversation through music and poetry and commentary. We want to sort of switch gears a little bit to talk about a certain kind of urgency. You know, there's a way in which you can get really comfortable and there seems to be no urgency. So if the theme of this is the urgency of now, I want to know why, after all these years, every single King holiday, we seem to be talking about the same thing. Why are we talking about the same thing? What is missing in our perceptions of, our treatment of Dr. King's life and legacy that is not demonstrating urgency, the urgency of now?
Wow, that's a
Well, that's where we need to be.
that's a loaded one. Yes. So, in I'm pretty loud. So. I don't see it. I'm loud, I can project, so it's okay.
So you remember the question? What
yeah.
is there that we're not getting about that legacy that is not demonstrating the urgency of now?
I mean, I think throughout Dr. King's life, he called for the urgency of now. And we can see that all throughout the speeches that he gave. And I think the thing that's missing from today is that there is kind of a short-term memory, a collective short-term memory. I think that there are things that propel people into action, like recently when we saw, during COVID, the murders of George Floyd and others play out across the TV. Everyone, was immediately wanting to do something about that, and I don't know if it perhaps was because society slowed down for a moment, which allowed people to actually digest what was happening across the country. But if you notice, when those killings occurred, there were a lot of organizations that started doing things such as diversity, equity, and inclusion kind of initiatives, but a lot of that is dissipated.
Yes.
So what has happened? Like
The urgency
the
doesn't seem to
urgency
be
of
there.
now is no longer, no longer now,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
So.
Well, and you talk about that in terms of King's writings, that's where we pull that urgency of now from, is that I Have a Dream speech. And the reality is that there are too many folks, Paul, and maybe you can help us figure this out, who somehow see color blindness, and I don't see difference, and this oneness of humanity as the only way that we can somehow imagine the actual radical nature of Dr. King's life and message. Paul, can you address any of
Yeah,
that?
for sure. This is a great question, and for us to speak, we'll have to be really brief. But I think one way we get it wrong is we focus on the beauty of the dream. Dreams come in different forms. There's daydreams, there's prophetic dreams, but there's also nightmares. And if you look at King's legacy, he spends a lot of time, if not most of his time, talking about the nightmare that many people have lived and are living in this country. And it's easy to go to the dream, which is a very small piece of his very famous speech when he hopes that his 4 little children be judged by not the color of their skin, but the content of their character. That's one small little piece. And it's easy to focus on that because we really like the beauty and we forget about the struggle. And the struggle is real for the history of this country. And then the piece about colorblindness, when I had my sociology hat on, colorblindness is pernicious and is rampant, and we have to really recognize it. It sounds beautiful to see I don't see color, and I see all you as human beings, and I love all people. It sounds beautiful, but it's very short, and it's very immature in addressing these issues. Pretending we don't see difference, pretending we don't see inequality, pretending we don't see entrenched segregation and separation, it's not based in reality. And it leads us to think things are kind of the way society is set up, and it's segregation and separation and racism. It seems normal and natural, and it doesn't give us the tools to really work to oppose the history of racial domination. So colorblindness, it sounds good, but we have to move way beyond that. Yes, we love love each other, but it's much deeper than that. And that's the struggle. That's the struggle that we have to really embrace.
It's also
I would
not true.
Not true.
And I would also add, like, in terms of colorblindness, it also puts us in a place of complacency because it says to us that there's nothing that we need. If everything is perfect, and color doesn't exist, and problems don't exist, then we don't have to act.
Or it's your individual responsibility if something is not happening.
Right.
As opposed to looking at things systemically.
Testing.
Yes, I
testing.
hear you. Yes, yes, yes. Well, you know what's interesting about this? You're absolutely right, Nada, in pointing out that, in May 2020, there seemed to be this sort of global earthquake, and people seem to be in a frenzy trying to figure out what to do. Now, it seems that if we're talking about the urgency of now, that urgency has changed since 2 years ago. That urgency has changed since last year. And part of that has to do with the fact that there's so many legislative bills going across 50 states where we can't even talk about history now. So let's reflect on that, because if we can address that, then we can address what was really urgent and radical about what Dr. King was doing. So if we're talking about the I Have a Dream speech, let's not just fast forward to the very end where we're singing, we are the world and we see people as the same, because that's not even what the speech was about. The speech was about inequities. It was about injustice, and he called it out. He said the Negro. That is not everybody. The Negro. He talked about poor people. That is not everybody. He talked about poor people. So why are we ignoring that part? And who's ignoring that part? And I want to connect it specifically with what's on the program here that says, whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly. If people understood that, there would be a certain kind of urgency. So what is there about this and this affecting everybody that those who don't see themselves affected by it are not participating in that urgency?
I would say that, in response to what you said about Dr. King is, we often hear those sound bites that happen this time of year.
Yeah.
That come out, and it's always that same quote. Judge people by the contents of their character. That's always the universal quote. But, when we break apart that speech, in actuality, it was Martin Luther King was talking about a dream, right? He was talking about the potential of humanity. Not that we had arrived at that place, but the potential for us to be better and to do better, right? And so, one of the, I wrote some notes down, and one of the things that he said, at the same time that speech was given, the exact same year, he wrote, "Where do we go from here, chaos or community?" And one of the things he said, "Why is equality so assiduously avoided? Why does white America delude itself? And how does it rationalize the evil it retains? The majority of white Americans consider themselves sincerely committed to justice for the Negro. They believe that American society is essentially hospitable to fair play and to steady growth toward a middle-class utopia, embodying racial harmony. But unfortunately, this is a fantasy of self-deception and comfortable vanity." So those same words were said at the same time that the I Have a Dream speech was given. So I think what society misses is that speech is a call to action. It's a call to do something and to not be complacent. And yes, we all want things to be beautiful. We all aspire towards that utopia. But what are we all collectively doing to move that needle forward?
Well, and this is not about virtue signaling about what we are and are not doing. It's to somehow stress a kind of individual and communal challenge. The essayist, talked about gun control. That doesn't seem to be an urgency in this country about gun control. The answer is why. If people are dying, then there should be an urgency there. The young people are telling us that. They're telling us this about climate control. Who's not listening to that? And how are we somehow imagining that whatever's happening is affecting those people and not all of us? That's when we're talking about systemic racism, for example. I had a student once who said, in an African American literature class, she said, well, I don't have to really think about racism because it doesn't really affect me. And that was the very embodiment of racism affecting her if she thought that it didn't affect her. That's what we have, and that urgency isn't there. Now, there is a kind of urgency to push back on progress. We saw that on January 6th. When we're talking about progress, there's an urgency to push that back, to stop people from voting, or to somehow come up with these other sort of romanticized, sugar-coated versions, or somebody said the Santa Claus version of Martin Luther King, not the real radical that makes us squirm in our seats. Because it would be much nicer if we could just, talk about the king that wanted to join hands and sing the Coke song, but that's not the king of his own writings and work.
And I would say if you're not uncomfortable, you're not doing the work.
Yes, if you're not uncomfortable, you're not doing the work. Paul.
Wonderful. I just want to go back to the quote
Yes.
that was said at the beginning and back on the program, and Professor Lester just mentioned it. It actually it supports the Baha'i writings tremendously. The analogy in the Baha'i writings is that humanity as a whole across the world is kind of like the human body. Every part has to work together in harmony for it to be functioning. If we have an ailment in one part of our body, and as we get older, we start realizing that it impacts all parts of us. If we go to the doctor for a physical ailment, illness, and we get an x-ray or an MRI or a diagnosis, we don't go home and put it on a bumper sticker or put it on our shirt or put it on the wall. We act and we listen to the doctor's remedy, and we go back in 6 weeks and see if it's working. Racism is a cancer in the society, and it's corrosive and it's corroding. And just like a physical illness, a spiritual illness needs addressing. And the Baha'i writings address the unity and the oneness of all of us. And if one part is aching, then we all ache. And it's going to happen eventually. If we are complacent and turn our eye to poverty and segregation and all these things that the youth were talking about, and I just want to give a shout out again to the youth, if we ignore that because we're complacent and we have the privilege to have the luxury to ignore what's going on, eventually it will impact us just like it does the human body. We can ignore it, but it will impact us. And if we really care about ourselves in the next generation, we will act with that urgency as we would our own physical illnesses.
Well, I'm still trying to figure out why is it so radical that we as a society try to acknowledge everyone's humanity. What's radical about that? What's radical about that? When we're trying to acknowledge everybody's humanity. And some of you may see these things I want you to grasp on Project Humanities. I'm plugging here something we call Humanity 101. And we use Dr. King's comment about, unfortunately, too much of society is comfort with tranquility and the status quo. But true equity and equality and justice comes when you disrupt that. So compassion and empathy, forgiveness, integrity, kindness, respect, and self-reflection. What's radical about that? Why are we denying some people their humanity? What is that? And what is it that Dr. King provides as a blueprint for us to move forward and to challenge that? So here's what I'd like to add is, what are we doing now? And I want each of us to take that inventory. What are we doing now to advance the life and legacy that we weren't doing last year? And what more can we do to make that dream a reality? Because we know from Langston Hughes in the Harlem Renaissance, it says, what happens to a dream deferred? Does it do this? Does it do this? And that very last line is a question, or does it explode? Or does it explode? All we're talking about is the humanity of all folks. And I guess we're sort of winding down. I'm thinking of I'll ask my panelists to have a final word, but I'd like to leave this notion of, well, let me go over you two first, and I'll leave my last word. So what can we say, what can we do to sort of make sure that we are demonstrating in our own lives the urgency of now?
I think in terms of, at least for me, in terms of social justice issues related to advancing our society and moving forward, it is to constantly question the systems that are in place, to constantly acknowledge and recognize the inherent white supremacy built in those systems, and to actively work to dismantle it. So, and by dismantle, I mean to actively engage in political process, electing officials that you know are going to do things to better our society. Also in the workplace, questioning policies that are put forth in the workplace and asking yourself how they might disenfranchise certain groups and speaking out against those things. And I also would say that the role of all of this is different for all of us. As an Afro-Latina, I no longer am, trying to protest or ask for permission to sit at the table. That's not something that I'm really interested in doing. I'm interested in doing what I can to help my community and to help people navigate a system that is inherently corrupt. So that might be different for someone else, but I think we all have a role that we can play, and we can all do things to advance our society.
That just sounds so radical, though. So Paul.
I should have went first on this one.
Paul, this is not a competition.
I know.
That's what's different about community. Community is not about competition. Community is about unity.
We need to move beyond competition, collaboration, and that's what this event is about. I like what Alice said about there's different ways to do this, and we all got to carry that flag in different ways, where you are in your life and your status and your place, and it changes over time. I'll try to be brief and just talk about a little bit where I'm at. I wear lots of different hats as a professor of sociology at a community college and teaching sociology. I have lots of opportunities to talk about these things, and most of my students come from humble backgrounds, and it's very diverse, and it's incredible to see their experiences, what they can contribute. So one way to listen to the youth a lot. And as a professor in higher education, all of you as mentors and leaders really talk about these things. My other hat is, really being a parent. My kids, I just dropped one off at the airport. They're 20 and 22 now, so it's a little bit different role as a parent. But I lean on, as my faith and as a Baha'i. Abdu'l-Baha is the son of Baha'u'llah, and Baha'u'llah is the founder of the Baha'i faith. Abdu'l-Baha came from Iran in the early 1900s, didn't speak this language, and he came to this country and he assaulted the racial and social lines, the norms in this country. He didn't privilege the comfort of those in power. He made people feel comfortable and accepted. He challenged racial segregation. And one of the things that I try to instill in my kids and in my students and whatnot is he taught us and told us that the average white America, he said this in the early 1900s, so just put it in context. He said the average white America has to have a revolutionary change in its attitude and concept toward his African American black brothers and sisters and citizens in this country. Not a little reform or a tweak, but a revolutionary change. What that looks like, Baha'is are trying to figure that out. All of us are. We're trying to figure out what that revolutionary change is. For me, it means, where am I going to buy my house? Where am I going to send my kids to school? What activities am I going to put my kids into? What art am I going to expose them to? Thank you, Dr. Jones. What activities? What media am I going to watch? What conversations am I going to have at the dinner table? What uncomfortable situations am I going to have? Who am I going to invite over to my house for dinner? Who am I going to allow my children to date and be friends with? To me, those are revolutionary changes in our own way, but everybody has to do it in our own way and where we're at. Being here is a great, taking your day off and to do this is being here, but it has to be more than one day. It has to be more than Black History Month. It has to be an ongoing change and every day. Forgive each other, listen to each other. I thank the committee, I thank Professor Lester for having me here, meeting Ada recently. This is just really, really good opportunities for us to have this dialogue and discourse, but it goes outside those doors. And you all know that, we all know that, but thank you for listening.
Yeah, and the idea here is not to point fingers. The idea here is not to point fingers, but to look at that last principle that I mentioned about self-reflection. What are we doing? What are we doing when we look in the mirror? Are we somehow living that dream, or are we sort of ignoring it? We have a name and a language for it now. Are we being non-racist, or are we being anti-racist? And is the nature of our thinking about racism intersectional, so that we are not just thinking about people in terms of what their skin color is, but what gender they are, what age they are, whether they are heterosexual or not. We're also looking at this whether they're cisgender. So there are all of these ways in which this moves beyond political correctness. It really is about meaningfulness and truth. And I want to leave with one of my favorite quotes, and I did this a few years ago when I stood there to receive this award. And it always comes back to me because I think that's what we're in denial of. This urgency of truth is because we're denying that things are not as romanticized as we want to believe they are. Toni Morrison said in her commencement address at Rutgers University in 2011, she says, "I have often wished that Jefferson had not used that phrase, the pursuit of happiness, as a third right. Although I understand in his first draft, it was life, liberty, and the pursuit of property. Of course, I would have been one of those properties one had the right to pursue." So I suppose happiness is an ethical improvement over a life devoted to the acquisition of land, the acquisition of resources, the acquisition of slaves. Still, she says, I would rather he had written life, liberty, and the pursuit of meaningfulness, or integrity, or truth. And that's what we want to challenge you today, is where is that truth about King's legacy? And to what extent are we perpetuating untruths and romanticizing and sugarcoating a dream that is still deferred? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Project Humanities, Neal, Paul, Ada, for that powerful, engaging, and challenging discussion to understand more profoundly the extent of Dr. King's message. We hope that you all will take these thoughts into the lunch socialization, and fellowship, and have further meaningful conversations together. Just a few general announcements. First, there's a series of pamphlets, booklets, and papers from different organizations that are in the hallway, so please take these on the way to your lunch. Neal mentioned one of them from Project Humanities. Also, there is a Black History Month film festival, which has 13 films that will be shown over 4 weekends in the month of February, and this is sponsored by the Baha'i Community of Scottsdale, the Public Discourse and Social Action Task Force, the Arizona Faith Network, the NAACP of the Maricopa County, and ASU Project Humanities. So please get these on your way out, and there's some incredible films on here, and they'll have discussions after each film. The next point is that before we disperse, we're going to have some volunteers come and move the chairs. So we'll ask you at that point to stand up and allow the volunteers to take the chairs so that we can move them to the lunch area. And please, when you stand up, stay in this room and move to the back side so that we can get the chairs out. Yes, the back chairs. And also, I would like to thank all the committee members for your hard work and dedication. The speakers and the award recipients. Please stay after the program for 10 or 15 minutes before lunch so that we can take official photography in front of the banner. Also, I would like to thank the Honorable Mayor, Jerry Bien-Willner, town staff, the Police Department, Public Works, and the Baha'is of the town of Paradise Valley. In order to shorten this, we are going to be scrolling credits where we've placed all the names of those who have contributed to the program, because there's quite a few. Friends, we have just had a wonderful opportunity to refresh our understanding of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and his vision for a world where all people respect and love each other and where peace reigns. Let us each, in our own way, recommit to doing what we can as individuals to bring Dr. King's vision a few steps closer to reality in this coming year. During the next 12 months, please make time to reflect on Dr. King's ideals on a regular basis and consider what you can do to foster them in your day-to-day life. See you next year.